My Little Sinner, Chapter 4. 2 days. 2 long days of boring physical therapy. Sure, the doctors were affirming that I had physically recovered, but to make the timing that excessive was just plain torture. I'm way too impatient when it comes just to waiting, because that's all it is. I during and after the therapy lessons. I waited. Once I finished for the day, I was left bogged down in my room. Did I also mention that it was pointless for the sessions? Because it was. There was no actual reason for me to doing it. It's like taking blind folk to see a magician. Oh, and the lengths of the useless therapy and waiting only added on to my annoyance. It became those one situations where you don't want to do. Time seems to extend itself just to spite you. While the ones you do yearn for, its duration is minuscule as a pygmy jabrah. And yes, oddly enough, there were points I did enjoy. It was when she returned. After both sessions, I would discover Rainbow Dash waited for me in that former room of mine. I don't know what her fascination with me was, but I didn't care what the reason was. I preferred her presence. When the two of us talked, it was like my days of early youth, and when I was reunited with Aurelia. It was joyous. I wonder, could Rainbow be a parallel version of Aurelia? I don't know, and I don't likely care if she isn't. The two of us seem to be connecting really well, despite the fact that we've only known each other for 2.5 days now. Even our small talk is turning into actual conversations. Once you would find from those of discussing a relatable topic or good companions. Once I leave, I think Rainbow would be the one I miss the most. Anyways, I'm finally freed from that sterile prison of ivy drips and sick ponies. Stepping beyond those windowed automatic doors, I was greeted with a gentle blanket of wind, a warmly lit sun, various bird chirpings, and 3 of my 6 rescuers. From left to right were Dash, Twilight Sparkle, and Pinkie Pie, whom was bouncing around like a pogo stick. I wasn't sure where the other 3 were, but this was fine. And I think out of all of them, the 2 that hankered my release the most were Twilight and Rainbow. Twilight for wanting to discuss and analyze my magic and powers, and Rainbow, aside from being a good studying friend, wants to challenge my abilities. During our time together in the hospital, she read me a few chapters of that Daring Do novel. Because of the book, it got onto the topic of adventurers, and I, being the traveler, was put onto the spot. So I told her about one of the places I traversed to and how it was mostly made up of floating nations. However, I left out my personal being there. The reason why I told her this piece of history was because I figured that I could somewhat relate it to her. That is because these nations held aerodynamic tournaments between each other. It was also with this tale that I vowed that I could fly. Maybe I should tell Twilight that also. When I told her that is when she demanded that we race. I accepted the challenge, but I told the Blue Bear that after I'm allowed a tour of Ponyville, and when we have the time. Finally glad to be out? Rainbow started. I stretched my arms towards the sky, almost like I wanted to grab that big blue ocean. I am jovial to be out now. Hurry, hurry! We've got so much to show you! The pink, energetic pony followed afterwards. I didn't want to keep them waiting, so taking my first actual step into this new world, I joined their group, and together we set forth. It was a peaceful town, with various colorful bricks and wooden buildings, mostly ranging in a 2-story size. Signs portrayed next to each other of the expertly crafted homes, like edifices, contained simple, but I guess understandable advertisements of what businesses lie within. Small stalls of the marketplaces bartered different merchandise for currency. I witnessed a mild transition go on and overheard the term bit used as the form of money. The ambient day bedazzled the cobblestone walkways, causing the denizens to perform their daily rituals of living a full life however they pleased. There were earth ponies, Pegasus ponies, and unicorn ponies, all with their unique hues and tints as far as the eyes could see. They communed with each other, wearing nothing but their bright, smiling faces. Resting along the mountain lines in the distance, my eyes could depict a vast white castle with a majestic waterfall crying next to it. Judging from the geography books Twilight gave me, that must be Canterlot. Euphoria set in my soul, as my mind could only truly describe this place as the perfect art piece. I cannot describe anything negative about this beautiful little village. Maybe. No. Definitely. Once my quest is finished, I'll return here. Actually, if Riku does think I'm dead, then maybe, just maybe, I won't have to leave. Sure, the majority of me still wants to get revenge against that bastard, but most of my objective changed later during my journey. I've learned a few life lessons during my journey, and changed my overall goal to protecting my new friends while I was with them. And as much as my gut churned by admitting this, I would have never learned these lessons if it wasn't for Riku. It's because of these thoughts and those lessons that make me wonder at times, if we had never had this hatred between us, if we have never had this fear between us, how had things originally turned out? Wow. Trying to find a positive relationship with my enemy. What has become of me? Given the sense that I was being watched, I finished pondering my thoughts and turned to this newfound curiosity seemingly directed at me. All the lively conversations have died down to a hushed chatter. What was once a normal schedule for all of the various ponies has now slightly shifted into uncertainty as I explored their fair town with my little tour guides. Each step I gave echoed loudly enough to overpower the notorious gossips. At least, in my mind it did. Various colored eyes twitching between me and whoever they were talking to. Remaining cool and collected physically was easy, but trepidation consumed my state of mind. I didn't like this attention. I understand why they're observing me, but could they at least stop? This glares of theirs slowly triggered some bad memories of mine. A terrible time. A moment of history when people called me a monster. Because that's what I was. A monster. And I believed them too. I couldn't deny those horrible sins I performed. I just wanted to disappear. But I couldn't. Not with those 3 mares leading me. And everyone, every pony, watching me. I need to relax. No pony here knows the truth. There was no need for alarm and to be afraid. Maybe it was a chance for a fresh start. Maybe I can cleanse my soul. Maybe I can finally find redemption here. I succeeded in calming myself, but I still hated being the center of attention. If there was only some way to... Hold on. I have my powers back. I should be able to transform myself into one of them. If I must become a pony to avoid the townfolk's watchful gaze, then I'll gladly accept the alteration. But there still is the actuality that my powers go beyond the magic here, as proven by Twilight's reaction. I'll need a place to hide while I change, lest I cause panic. Hey, girls? Would there happen to be a bathroom nearby? I forgot to go while I was still at the hospital. Even though the restroom was a deception, I still felt embarrassed to ask. Maybe the embarrassment is just a natural reaction to such a question. There was a bit of snickering, but out of all, Twilight was the one to answer. We're coming up the Sugar Cube corner. There should be one in there. Ooh, this is perfect. While Mr. Alien uses the bathroom, it will give me time to prepare for his party, Pinkie Pie added. Since these past few days I've been here, Pinkie doesn't know my name. Also, what's this about a party? I had to ask that. Yeah, Pinkie Pie is known for her parties. She does them all too. Birthdays, celebrations, even parties just a party. It wouldn't be like her not to throw one for a day. She's going to be throwing you a welcoming party. You should feel lucky since it's Pinkie's parties. Her parties are really something, Rainbow explained. I looked at the skipping mare, who returned my stare with a silly giggle. It was contagious, but I withheld from bursting out. I must admit, the pink one amuses me. To be this accepted by unbiased feelings feels really good. Really good. My body regained that tranquil sensation from earlier as I slowly smiled ear to ear. I haven't been treated like this in ages. Not since my time at the orphanage and my time as a private. Plus, I'm having a party. I wouldn't even know how to react in such a situation. In all my life, I've never had or been one. I hear they're quite fun. In all existence, it doesn't matter if many reject you, as long as there are one that accepts you, even if it was by accident. I'm glad I found this place. Suddenly, I felt a bit regretful in making my attempt for my own personal benefits. I think now I'll transform only to give the citizens of Ponyville some exterior. Arriving at Sugar Cube Corner, I couldn't believe the sight in front of me. The building standing before me was a life-size gingerbread house, and the belfry that sat atop appeared to be a giant cupcake with candles. As we entered, I investigated the material closer and was able to determine that it was indeed gingerbread with minimal wood and some other soft foamy substance. I think it was cake. The structure defies all logic. I think I'll just chalk it up to magic on how it's still existent. Continuing on, the interior blew my brain more. The various arrays of desserts is normal. What isn't is the twirled candy cane pillars. Yep, magic. Right in front of the entrance is what seemed to be the reception counter, and behind that was some stairs leading to the upper floors. Right next to the navy blue mahogany cabinet, which also was behind the counter, was a pair of cafe doors. On the left of us was another room that was widely open and only contained another set of stairs. The entrance to this area had sweets of all kind painted on for decoration. Don't know why, considering this entire establishment is a bohemian dessert. A mental question aroused in me, and I decided to answer it to myself. The reason why for two stairs heading to the same floor is because there's a cutoff point somewhere up there. Aside from a bakery, this place must also act as a home. So one wing must be for personal use, while the other is business side. As I noted that in my mind, Pinkie Pie casually went up the left set of stairs, and by casually, if you mean bounced up each step, then yes, casually. "You can find the bathroom at the end of the hall, and on the right," the pink mare announced before disappearing down it. I shortly proceeded through it as well. This was a simple pale blue hallway, and to my surprise, was mostly made up of wood. Just how much of this house is what? Anyways, end of the hall on the right. For a personal bathroom, it seemed very empty aside from the necessities. Sitting undisturbed on the left side of the wall was an old-fashioned white porcelain tub, while resting on the right was a single sink with a medicine cabinet mirror resting above it. Now behind me and next to the doors was both a towel rack and an expertly crafted dresser, most likely containing extra towels. Both fixtures made up on the wall and the exit area. Opposing the only opening was a simple window frame, left viewing the outside world because its opaque yellow curtains were left ajar. From the positioning of the windows, it must have faced north. It was only a guess because I hadn't turned on the lights, but the area was already brightly lit from the sun illuminating inside. And lastly, below the frame of the toilet was a pale blue furry cover with a roll of toilet paper sitting on the back lid. I'm not even going to bother asking how they use it. With a quick twist of the lock and pulling the curtains aside, I had as much privacy as I was going to get. Okay, let's begin. I closed my eyes and pictured a pony in mind. Slowly, that thought changed into Rainbow Dash. I blushed a little. Guess I've been around her too much. focus in me. I immediately shook my head and cleared my thinking process. This time I made sure to envision a cult. Next, I let all my energy flow through the cell's mind like a gentle river. Each muscle shuddered and tensed up as I could feel something happening. So close now. My vitality encircled my presence, slowly getting closer and closer, till I could feel its shape around my form. I'm ready now. I released my powers and... nothing. What? This can't be right. I did everything right. At least I think I did. I had to try again. I focused myself and gathered my spirit energy and tried again and again, but to no avail. What the hell is going on? Maybe I can't turn into a pony, but there still is one more thing I could try. I collected my thoughts again and channeled my psyche. I had to become the Leviathan again. I am so sorry to the owners of this place, and I promise I'll fix all the damages done. I could feel my very soul burning through this physical state of mine. It contained the fury of 1,000 white-hot suns, but I was able to withstand the heat emitting from me. Come on. Come on. I exhaled the contained force one last time and... still nothing? My body was still human, all my limbs the same, and I looked in the mirror and saw nothing had changed. Not even a tiny bit of alteration. I have all my powers, so what the hell is the matter? Wait. I think I have all my powers. I searched deep within my memories for answers, and I kept coming up with the same conclusion. I've unlocked all my potential, and I should be able to control it. I can understand if there is a limit to morphing oneself into a different creature, and I don't have any anamorphic spells or capabilities, but that dragon... I remember turning into it. So why can't I now? I need to train and confirm that I do have full control of my powers. For now, I'll return to the others. I must have taken abruptly 20 minutes during my failures. Before I left the bathroom, I made my way to the sink and turned the cold water on. Even though I was able to bear the heat, I just wanted to help regulate my body temperature. I figured I was done after a few quick scoops of splashes to my face. I sat there, staring at my white face in the mirror. I grew tired of looking at it. If there was only some way to... Wait. How could I have forgotten about that old thing? I opened up the palm of my right hand, and a soft glow formed. Soon it flattened out and materialized into a mask. It was a fog hat gray mask that had no eye holes, and it looked like a tropical bird's beak. I then fitted it onto my face, and even though it had no eye holes, the technology that went into making this item was simply outstanding. The darkness between my face and the mask was burned away as the face cover lit up. Its visionary effects made it seem like I wasn't even wearing the thing from my view, and it was all possible thanks to the spirit energy powering it. And that's just one of the features. Its most common features are mostly for personnel and military use, but aside from the two, it has massive capabilities. I had one last confirmation with the mirror and my mask. It was a familiar sight with me. I gave one nod at my reflection and proceeded back down to the reception area. To my surprise, all I could find was Twilight waiting alone for me. What happened to the other two? I asked as I reached the last step. Pinky said that she needed Rainbow's help with something important. So the two... Whoa! What is that? She stated while staring at my mask. It's an old keepsake of mine, being honest. I completely forgot about it till recently. I answered while moving the metal item. Twilight then used her magic to levitate my mask closer, and shortly after began examining it intensively. It wasn't on your belonging when the others and I found you. How is it possible that you currently possess this? It's actually quite simple. Even though it appears to be a normal mask, it is infused with highly advanced technology and magic. The reason why you couldn't find it before was because when I arrived, I had summoned it. This mask reacts to my own spiritual presence and materializes into the form you see. As long as energy is fed into the mask, it'll continue to work. But what if no energy is fed into it? What happens to it then? Well, there is a built-in storage unit with the magic reserves that'll power the mask if the wearer doesn't. I mostly let the reserves generate until they run low. Then I eventually recharge it. But if all the energy is depleted, then it just turns into a regular mask. After explaining all that, it was followed by a brief moment of silence as the purple pony processed the information. I guess it truly does show where I come from as far more evolved than Equestria. Then again, why would this place need to evolve any further when it's thriving and already has all the necessities it needs? With my current purpose here proving to be fulfilled and pointless, the two of us made our exit and continued on with my tour. I believe I had more eye staring this time because of my mask. Unlike earlier, though, I managed to ignore those glowing eyes. Twilight guided me out through the marketplace and into the town square, which I must say looks like a firefight broke out here. I could spot numerous blast marks burned into the roads. A few roofs were being mended and replaced for the tops were scorched. At the closing distance stood currently a stone bridge that is being rebuilt. What made this path of destruction odd is that if you line up each point of destruction, it would make a straight path. I deterred away from Twilight and followed the burn marks to the bridge. As I got closer to the construction, I could see one more mark, but this one was more of a hole. In fact, it was a crater. Not wanting to disrupt the pony contractors from their business of fixing the walkway, I decided to jump across the stream, which may have been a 12-foot jump. It wasn't a bother. But the crater was for me. It dug roughly about 10.5 feet deep, and its earthly interior seemed somewhat familiar. A flash of white appeared in front of me and on the opposite side of the hole. It was Twilight. I had to turn back where I previously saw and back to where the unicorn stands now. Did she teleport? "I see you found Ground Zero," she declared. Ground Zero? Do you mean to tell me that this is where I crashed? That's correct. You caused some trouble on your way down, as you could tell. I looked back at the destruction laid behind us. I understand now. I crashed straight into Ponyville, and that boulder I hit must have been the bridge. I really did cause one hell of a mess. I guess I'll have a lot more to reimburse aside from the elements of harm and paid for my medical expenses. But I think I can fix the damages here and now without worry or having to exchange in any form of payment. I turned my attention back to the charge rail, but not to the bridge since it's almost fully repaired. I focused on each and every burn, then used an intangible force to restore the broken site. Twilight was the only one to truly notice the sudden change, and from her expression, probably made a mental note of what she just witnessed me perform. I was curious if there were any more places that I had to face because of me being a deadly fireball, so I asked my guide if there were any others. As told by Twilight, there is one more scorched spot, but it was just outside of town in an area where it wouldn't be bothered by the burn. Now that was answered, there was one more question I had to ask. Were there any casualties during my descent? I asked in a quiet tone. To be honest, I was nervous for the answer the Lavender Mare would give me. There were none, fortunately. Just a few frightened ponies from your crash, she responded. That's a relief to hear. I don't know what I've done if any pony got hurt or injured on my account. Fighting something with a cause is one thing, but if it's your fault and an innocent bystander got hurt, then it's another. As I felt glad for not horribly maiming the locals, Twilight gave a small gasp. I'm terribly sorry, but I'm going to have to cut this tour short. I just remembered that I've delivered a very important letter. Perhaps we can continue some other time? she added with a slightly hushed tone. I thought it over and answered, "It shouldn't be a problem. Just let me know when we can continue." This letter must be very important to her if she's that worried about having to arrive late to its destination, especially knowing how interested she is into me. I find it understandable. "Oh, before you leave, could you tell me how to get to Applejack's farm? I want to ask for some employment," I said, catching the unicorn from leaving.
"Sure. If you continue along this roadway, it should take you to a path that leads you straight to Sweet Apple Acres."
Once Twilight finished, she was gone in the same flash as earlier. With my directions, I set off. After a 30-minute hike so far, I had to wonder, has Twilight Sparkle taken this route so many times that she can easily remember where to go and not assume there is a different walkway? Because right now, I'm stuck at a fork in the road. I decided to let nature and fate pick my way, and what I meant by that was by letting a twig pick my path. There was a decent-sized tree nearby with some low-hanging branches that I could grab, hardly using any effort. So I snatched one of the branches and broke off a piece, one that wouldn't damage the plant too much. Next, what I did was I twirled the stick and shortly after, tossed it into the air. When it landed, the piece of wood pointed towards the right path, so I followed it. But where it led me wasn't my destination, but it was something else that had caught my fancy. "This must be the one she was referring to," I muttered under my breath. Placed before me was a massively scorched indention. There was no about it. This cavity had to have been from first impact, and I have no idea why that purple equine said the area wouldn't go unbothered. This place looks like it just came out of hell. Maybe she said that not to make me worry. The road couldn't continue further because the force was strong enough to obliterate it. The external shockwave created from the crash made it seem like the surrounding trees were trying to claw away from the destruction. Studying the devastation something seemed off. This mark didn't exactly line up with the ones in town. Upon closer examination, I discovered that this point had a slight crease to it, and the remaining bits of earth decreased at a 42-degree angle. I came to the conclusion that when I first made contact with the ground, it redirected me and caused me to curve mid-flight into Ponyville. There is no point in staying here, and recalling what Twilight said, the area shouldn't be bothered by this mess. As much as it seemed wrong to leave it as it is, I decided to trust her words. Hopefully nature will be able to heal itself over time. I could make out what I think it was formerly the rest of a road, so I followed it. Again, I'm wrong in my directions. Can I even consider the first time my fault? Well, this time I was led to a lake. I should have probably stopped when I noticed there was no more pathway. It was a gentle, serene lake, resting peacefully as the trees crowded it, as they seemed to witness the body of water in perfection. With hardly a cloud in the sky, the sun was left beaming its lights onto the surface, creating little diamonds floating above the liquid. Just like Ponyville, this lake gave me a tranquil feeling that I enjoyed. As much euphoria it gave me, I decided that it was going to be short-lived. I had as much privacy that anyone could ask for. Now that I was completely alone, I was going to see if I truly did unleash my true potential. I focused myself and grasped hold of my spiritual energy, and weaponized it into a physical form. Under my breath, I called out its name, Apocalypto. However, there was something different about it. Originally, my weapon was a dark brown wand, with the head being a 1.5-foot circle that had spiked blades following the middle trace. At the very bottom of the staff was a single dagger blade, just like the one on Riku's scythe. But now Apocalypto is a Zweihander. The entire sword is a 1/4 foot wide and 6 feet in length. It was clothed to matching my size, Maybe give it a few more inches and it'll be even. It had a golden hilt, heading straight towards the silver hue blade, reflecting all the light that hit it. It was a single-edged sword, and where the hilt and flat end met, sat the upper half of a little double-horned dragon's head, in the same sun-gold color as the handle. Because of this weapon's size and weight, it would have taken 5 men to lift this thing. But with my strength, I could easily lift it with one arm. My weapon. My soul has gone through a rebirth. Next, I released a pulse of energy into the earth, and forcing their way out in a zombie fashion were very bulky humanoid figures. These mucky-looking golems were soon accompanied by earth-brown stone tendrils. All the summoned monsters turned their attention towards me, with fury emanating from their presence. That is only because I filled those empty husks of body with hatred and aggression, and more importantly, had them directed at me. I added the emotion of hatred so that they would face me. Wouldn't want them wandering off and attacking anyone unfortunate enough to cross paths with them. And the reason for bringing these creatures to life would be so that I could actually train. If I'd used simple telekinetic levitation on random objects and threw them at myself, it would eventually become too predictable, especially because I was manipulating the things. It was extant that I confirmed that I truly do have control of my powers. "Bring it!" I ordered the beasts, while pointing the tip of Apocalypto at them. The tentacles and rock monsters groaned and bellowed out towards me as they advanced on my position. With lightning speed reaction, I swung my spirit blade into one of the golem, and with such velocity, the force slit straight through the autonomous creature like butter. Its cohorts that tried flanking me were found dangling in my hand within seconds. As the 2 spikes thrust at me, I increased my grip and turned the abomination's head into dust. This allowed me to have a free hand so I could have more control in the following counter. I unleashed a strong paralyzing force that froze the tendrils in mid-strike. However, it seemed like these rocky vines weren't planning on attacking alone, for more golems lunged themselves into the air for a stomp attack. I directed a parcel of my attention at them. With a psychic burst, these beasts were thrown back to the ground, creating an avalanche sound. Now that the minor distraction was out of the way, I focused back on the previous beasts. I reached out my hand and grabbed the tips of both tentacles. With a quick jolt of electricity, they collapsed. These creations of mine were nothing but brutes. That's not satisfying at all. So, I'll have to make them stronger. With the same spell from earlier, I replicated more Lucis Naturettes, except this time, I mimicked some of my essence into the creatures. I could sense the powers burning from them as they were sweating it. Yes, this is perfect. This will be a true session. I summoned a barrier around the lake, not only to prevent any beast from escaping, but so that no destructive attacks may leave. "Come at me," I declared in an excited tone. One of the Gaia warriors drove its arm deep into the earth, only to have it created piercing spikes beneath me with the intent of stabbing me. Too simple of a move. I avoided it by flying away. I made a pause and noticed the second golem formed its appendages into a Gatling gun and began firing stony bullets. I raised my massive sway-hander and deflected each shot with such speed the movements were undetectable through normal sight. They may be stronger now, but it seems they aren't smarter. That's a shame. Suddenly the sun behind me was eclipsed by an unknown object. Before I could realize what it was already pressed into that dirt chest. Both my captor and I plunged into the thing's body slam. As the thing's body slammed me, I was still trapped underneath the golem after impact. Afterwards, I felt Apocalypto yanked out of my hands, and more weight added to the top of my being. I couldn't even sense the first one that grabbed me. Were the others just a distraction? Did they outsmart me? This is fucking perfect! It just means I would get more training out of these dummies I wanted. I could feel a devilish grin within my cheeks. I formed an orb deep within my soul, and expanded it out till it burst from my body, and blew up the rocky piles in a stony firework display. I immediately flipped up, and called my sword back to me. The monsters that took it had both arms crumble from the force as my blade flung free from it, and back into my grip. I then raised my hand, and mimicking a maestro, massive columns ejected from the ground beneath my training dummies. Following by this gesture, I clasped my palm together. The breaking of stone reverberated in this dome force field. What I had done was I controlled the pillars to slam into each other. Golems first. However, witnessing what happened next made me question my attack, for the creatures merged together with the stone towers and fused each one into create some new monstrosity. This new thing formed itself into a gigantic sphere with two arm-like limbs supporting its weight. It had a spiked tail with rocks in such a formation that it had to scale-like appearance. And lastly, the creature's new face formed a jack-o'-lantern. Looked like a jack-o'-lantern. It made me want to light a fire inside it, just to see if it would light up. The beast opened its vast mouth and unleashed a hollowed roar at me. I concentrated my energy into a ball and blasted it. This sad excuse for a mud pumpkin. To my disappointment, it didn't light up like I had hoped, but it did hurt the creature. This time, with a vicious growl, was let loose. Numerous tendrils came piercing out of the ground and lunging for me. I fired a few blasts at them before diving towards the lake. The tentacles were mostly made up of sand and mud, so some of the water should make them unstable. Sheathing Apocalypto back within me, I plotted my next move. In a wave-like movement, I took hold of the lake and bended it to my will. With a fluid forward thrust, I managed to drown each and every one of those abominations. Unsure of the destruction I had caused to them, I retracted the liquid back to the bed and let the water rest. My attack wiped out the tendrils and seemed to have loosened one of the arms of the monster's joint. This is my chance, so I took it. Speeding up to the thing, I realized something was wrong. I was diverted down my multiple sandy hands. I was held into position long enough for the Golem King to slam its weight into the earth and pull out a new limb. After seeing this, I broke free and took in a deep inhale. Once I felt like I had enough air, I released a mighty fire breath with such intensity that it literally glassed the beach in front of the lake. My follow-ups were blunt force chi strikes against the base of the hive mine. Each hit concaved the face of the beast till it fell to the ground. Upon impact, the creature began dragging its face in the earth till it popped right back up without a scratch on it. As long as there's any form of this thing's just going to keep on healing itself, isn't it? So if I have any hope of defeating it, I'm either going to have to destroy the planet or completely eradicate this demon. There's no way in hell I'm going to consider the first option. I threw a whirlwind circle down in the middle and split the thing in half. Next, I summoned a dark spiritual energy, which the aura burned wildly in both my hands. In a second, I was already between the two halves. If Rainbow really plans on challenging my speed, then I think if she had just witnessed how fast I went, she may regret it. I spread both my arms as birds spread their wings, and unleashed the hellish chaos of my shadowy beams. The groaning pain of my creation was swallowed by the deafening sound as the attack devoured the monster and continued on till it met the defensive capabilities of my barrier. But the force was too strong as the destruction exploded upon from contact. The surrounding shield slowly cracked and fell to pieces with an echoing glass-breaking sound. This is only the beginning of my training. I need more. I need to be pushed to the limit. Again! With the same powers used earlier, I summoned more monsters. Except I made them stronger and deadlier than the ones I just killed. I focused myself and created a darkness that slowly consumed the light in the area, and internally converted into black flame around both my hands. Now then, let us resume.